Glenn Fricke is frickin' wrong. That's what I'm saying. The Spider V by Line 6 is not the worst amp ever. Now, Glenn Fricke is also right, which is something him and we found out. Well, I kind of knew that all along, but I found out in talking to him extensively about the issue. But he also dares people when they say, my Line 6 Spider is awesome, you can totally record with that. Well, he dares...
Go ahead, send me a recording.
Well, I thought I'd take the challenge. Here it is. So I had posted this track separately, calling it Mystery Amp Track, having you guess. Some of you guessed Line6 Spider V. I'm going to say not because you actually heard that that's a Spider V, because I don't think anyone would. I couldn't. It would be impossible for me to spot that, for several reasons that we talk later. But someone saw it standing in the back somewhere, and that rumor then spread. Interestingly enough, the amps you went to were amps that right now are being reviewed. Not what does it sound like, but people said PRS MT15. People said the PRS super models or whatever, that amp software. Many people said that because right now many YouTube channels are covering that. There was also, you know, 3,000-4,000 euro amps being mentioned. Pretty much the whole board of this is software, this is freeware, this is some kind of modeler, everything across the board. You know why? You're gonna hate me for this. You can't tell from the recording what kind of amp that is. In the context, it works. I've recorded that song with a 100-watt La Boga tube head, and now the version I have with the Line6 Spider V, I would stand by it, use it on an album, and not look back. Why record it again? Sounds fine to me. Now, I had Glenn listen to it on his show, Merciless Mix Reviews. He didn't really comment on the song at all during the show, which was a bummer. He didn't know it was mine. It was, you know, he had no idea. But I asked him later, and all he could say, without knowing what it was, the guitar sounded a bit nasal. A bit nasal is not...
Worst amp ever. This is shit, you can't record with it.
No, a bit nasal is a matter of taste, okay? It's like, I like it this way, he likes it this way. He would have taken some, whatever, 600, 500 hertz out of it, whatever. That frequency. It's not, this is unusable, didn't come. It's not, what the crap did you do there? That's the worst sound ever, how could you? He didn't say that. So, yeah, that's what came out of asking all of you guys. Pretty much, some of you said it's a Line6, it's a that, it's a Helix, it's a software, it's a Mesa Boogie for $4,000. Really, no one had a clue. I don't think you can from listening. Back to me now. I don't quite know why I'm doing this video. Glenn Fricker. We all love him. And we love when he's blowing up or sledgehammering the Line6 Spider V or some Spider. I think it's a Spider V. Now, I think that Glenn is a little bit unfair towards the Line6 Spider. Because Glenn lives in his metal world, and that's totally legit. But judging a 159 euro amp solely on its capability to be a fat-ass metal machine is possibly not the fairest thing to do. And I'm not here to tell you that the Line6 Spider V is a brilliant amp. But I have a slightly different approach to it. It most certainly can't do metal with its crappy little speaker. Because it's a little 8-inch and then a tweeter, so it's full range. So why is it full range? Because you can pump your music through it. So is it a metal amp? No, it's a stereo. It can also be a stereo for 159 euro. Meaning you can put aux, you put your, with an aux in, put your phone into it. You can even pump USB data into it with your phone or your computer. And being a full range speaker, it's a stereo. So it's like a Bluetooth speaker, but a bigger one. Which means all the amps in it are going through the built-in speaker full range with the speaker simulation. So, that's the one thing that it is. It's a speaker. Full range. It's, of course, with its built-in 8-inch speaker, it's not gonna sound amazing. The speaker is the biggest problem with it. Now, if you don't use a speaker, which is what I did, and you go out USB, The sounds are poddish. They're not bad. They're not great, but they're not bad at all. They're absolutely okay for the money. You see that I'm using right now the USB. There's all the foot switch input. Here's the aux input. You can plug in your phone, but I'm using USB to the computer. Sadly, there is no line out, which would be great because you can go line out directly to your audio interface or something. So hooking up USB is a little bit, it can be annoying. So when you do that, you're going around the biggest problem of it, the speaker. When you're using the speaker, it gets really fucking annoying really fast. It doesn't sound great. But it's $160. I've tested a whole bunch of little practice amps. The Mustang GT40, it's $40 more. The Fender practice amp, it doesn't sound any better. The Vox Audio sounds pretty good. Small plastic thing, it's $280. Doesn't have all the effects features and all that stuff. It has Bluetooth and it's also a speaker, but it's a little practice amp and it doesn't sound phenomenally more amazing for metal. You would never put a mic in front of it. So, I think it's funny what Glenn's doing. It's funny as fuck, but it's never meant to be a practice amp, a metal amp. It's a practice amp. I had students, tons of them, and Glenn doesn't approach it this way. When Glenn thinks metal amp, Spider V, let's review it as an amp. You have to review it as a student amp. I had many students and parents come say, here's our budget, what can we get? So you have to get a guitar and a stand and a gig bag and all that stuff. Something's itchy. And within that budget, everything's got to fit in. Tuner, maybe a metronome, drum computer, whatever. It's all in here. The amp has a built-in little drum machine. It's got a metronome, built-in tuner, built-in effects. It's all there. Are the effects amazing? Are the sounds amazing? But it's all there, cheaper than any of its competition. Again, it doesn't sound great, which Glenn has absolutely a point there. So let's do a couple sounds. This is not a full review. This is just trolling Glenn. I'm on a Brit 800 thing there. And so let's listen to it in the room. Mic'd with like $700 of Lewitt mics, the LCT 340 right here in a stereo configuration. Let's see what that sounds like right there. Not great. So if we start with what it starts with, where are we here? It's just the speaker's crap. That's ultra crap. I'm sorry. Very bitey. That is total fun. F-U-N. Obviously, you can change that. Interestingly, those drums don't go out of the USB as I'm seeing right here. Can you change that? Probably somewhere. What is that? Metronome. Demo riff. What did that do? Neat, but also very, very piercing and ew. Now it's supposed to be like a clean sound. That's also not good. Thin, bitey, ew. Just crappy. Let's look at the interface before we go to not so crappy. Once you twist the knobbies, it shows you what it's set to, which is very nice. And that's when you're on the amp. When you go to effects, it changes to a second layer, which is colored, and it shows you effects. So you can set up your comp. You can set the drive of your screamer in this case, opto, tremolo, and delay, and all of a sudden you got. I didn't notice that was in the way. So hey, and you can of course set up all these effects when you go to edit, and then scroll down and down and down and down. There's tons of parameters. I really like that you have direct access to these things right there. Very simple with knobs. A really cool interface with the colors. I like it. It's pretty damn simple. You hold this in. You have a tuner, which actually works rather well. We're staying in drop D, of course. Beautiful. And then, of course, you get the acoustic sound. What is that for? What's the point? Well, when I'm working with students and I'm like, well, let's do this acoustic song or do the strumming, it's cooler when it's an acoustic sound. Do they have an acoustic that just started out? They might not. So having that is not bad. Having that is actually a pretty cool thing to have just to practice acoustic songs. But again, the speaker sounds like crap. Now, let's forget about the speaker and listen to it going DI. I'm hearing it with latency, which of course sucks balls, but the AC30 is a horrible sound. Actually, the DI works. Whatever. Acoustic rhythm, lots of acoustic stuff. Let's go to this, because that's actually not horrible. Now what's happening here? Where did the speaker simulation go? Well, look at this. No cap, no mic. Cap enable off. Why? So that you can use IRs. Which brings me to Lancaster Audio, which is a company that Glenn is somehow involved in. Don't ask me how. But Glenn has impulse responses of his cabs, his rev, his angle, his mmm, I think, I don't know if it's in there, but definitely his rev, and his coffee lungo, coffee cabs, which is the impulse response I used on that sound in the track at the beginning. Now, obviously, the result is not quite the same that you would have if you pumped a real amp into it. But if you're using that pretty crappy DI through the Lancaster Audio Pulse, which is their software, screenshot here, with the Lungo, you actually get results with the Spider and Glenn's cab that don't really sound so shitty. Absolutely acceptable, and you can EQ it a bit and all that stuff, do all the EQ magic you want. Usable in a mix. Spider 5, usable in a mix. You just have to try a bit. Glenn has absolutely a point. The amp by itself, not a metal thing. Now, Glenn said, for the same money, you can buy a Joyo Zombie, which is true, but you need a cab for it, which brings you another $120 over budget compared to just the amp. And then you have, well, then you have a Zombie and a cab. You have zero effects. You have no tuner. You have no drum computer. You have no metronome. You don't have a mic. You don't have a DI input into your system. It is simply not feasible for most kids to record themselves when they buy a Zombie and the cab, which is going to run them $120 more than this amp. I'm not trying to say the amp sounds brilliant. I'm trying to say that maybe not the fairest comparison there, because to make the Zombie and the cab to what this is, you'll need a mic, you'll need an audio interface, you'll need a drum computer, you'll need a metronome, you need a tuner. Once you, and effects, you need, all these effects that are in there, which is quite a few. If we go to, let's see, there's a whole bunch of, here, look at this, crazy shit effects. Now, whether or not we need that, that's beside the point, it's there. The point is, if you are just starting out, playing around with all these effects can be fun. Boy, that sounds pretty bad though. That's cool. So, I don't necessarily think it's fair to say as a metal amp it sucks. It's true by itself, but DI, turning the speaker simulation off and using Glenn's cab, you get somewhere. Well, that might be speaking for Lancaster Audio and Glenn's cab, but it's also something you can do with a €159 amp. That's all I'm saying. You know I love you, Glenn, right? Like, seriously, you're awesome. Now, my issue with Glenn saying the Line6 Spider V is horrible as a recording amp is simply rooted in, it's not a recording amp! But if you take that statement by itself, it's not a recording amp, it's exactly what he's saying. But he's claiming that people think that's what it is. And his warning is, people, it's not a recording amp. You don't go in the studio with a Spider V. And I'm calling him a total fucktardian idiot for thinking that people would think that it's a recording amp. Now, in said calling him that, we're really good friends, we found out that we have different experiences. Because my issue is that he's seeing it or he's warning that this is not a recording amp. When I'm thinking, dude, it's clearly meant as a practice amp, a student amp, a beginner amp, an amp that can do many, many things in your little room in the corner. Whereas he's claiming, well, get this and this and this if you want to record metal. First of all, it's not just metal, but here's what we found out. When I still ran this as a studio, musicians came and they clearly, in this or my old studio where I had not that many amps, but they never came with amps. They oftentimes didn't even come with guitars because they knew I had the good shit. They would never come to me and say, here, I want to record this amp. They came and say, what sound would you choose for this? That's my experience with people with brains. Apparently, Glenn works in an area where people don't have a lot of brains, or at least some of them, and his experience is completely different. He actually had people come to the studio, and probably not just one, with a Line6 Spider whatever, or some kind of crappy beginner model amp, and they asked him to record that. At which point, his brain probably just melted or exploded or whatever, and he's like, are you freaking nuts? And he had to argue with them, dude, I've got a 60-something, 50 PV, I don't know, amp here. I don't know things. I have amazing amps, why don't you use those? And they were like, no, ma Spider très bien avec le distortion. It's Canada, who knows, they probably speak French. So, his experience is that people actually were stupid enough to go to a professional recording studio trying to record a Line 6. This is where his obsession with warning you guys about these types of amps comes from. He's not seeing them as practice amps or beginner amps, which is, I think, where his fault lies, because they're great for that, because they offer everything in one box. Not great sounds, but a lot of features. His obsession comes from actually having experienced people trying to bring that to a professional studio, which is ridiculous. It was really cool when we found out. He's never communicated that actually happened, because I called him an idiot for thinking that would happen. Then he told me, dude, that happened. So there. That's where the discrepancy is. So Glenn, you have a point, but you also don't have a point, because it's clearly not a recording amp. Oh, that's actually what you're saying. Okay, good. We agree. It's not a recording amp. I'm sorry that you had people trying to record that in your studio. That's just stupid. What we don't agree is him saying, well, you could just use some recording software. I'm sorry, I taught guitar for many years. When you have a 12-year-old and parents that want to buy a guitar and an amp and a stand and a gig bag and a tuner. Wait, we don't need that because the Spider V has a built-in tuner. You try to make it as easy for them as possible. So you would recommend a Mustang, a Spider V, maybe even a Marshall Code. I don't know, probably not. Because it has everything that they need to start with. Saying, yeah, you just use software isn't going to cut it. Those kids don't have monitor speakers. They have tiny little, if at all, tiny little speakers on their laptop maybe, or maybe they have a tablet nowadays. So they have little laptop speakers. Well, you know what? With these, even the software is going to sound like ass. How do you get into the software? You just plug into your computer? No, you'll need an interface. That's going to run you $100 or $200, depending on the interface, which means that again needs a power and plugged in USB. It needs to be set up. It needs to have low latency. You have to have the right hardware and possibly computer speakers or monitor speakers of good quality to actually play through a system like this. It is not something for the 12-year-old who just started out guitar and knows nothing about anything. They don't know latencies and ASIO and all that stuff. Those systems, even for me, are too cumbersome, too complicated. I don't like playing through my computer. I do play through the Apollo because it's got unison and I can just load up an amp and there's no latency and it's great. But a Unison amp in the Apollo. One of them, just the software, will cost you $200, which is already $40 more than the Spider V. So for what it is trying to be, the Spider V is great. For anything else, Glenn's completely right. So there you go. And I guess back to me now. Links below in case you want to buy this for some reason. Because if you are a kid that would be in the market for this, you're not watching my video. So I don't know. That's really all that's for. It's a practice amp for kids. If you are a little bit more advanced, you're looking for a practice amp, don't get the Spider V. Because you're not going to be happy with the sounds. But you know what, for kids, it is the cheapest all-in-one modeling amp with everything built in to fiddle around. Okay? Pretty cool. Links below. If you don't see me in the future, then Glenn killed me. I hope that's not happening. See you guys. Animals, end.
Hello, I'm a handsome prince and I live in a fairy tale land. I know really lots of things, let me show to you, my friend. Hello, I'm a magic star and I live on the Milky Way. And I'm going to steal your cars, I got nothing more to say. The sun shines and the world is fine, but I think there must be more. I just want you to reply